5 million naira. The words flashed across the giant screen behind Ibiere Tamuno, bold and merciless. Payment for 6-month marriage agreement. 5 million. The ballroom exploded. Phones rose. Cameras flashed. Laughter spread through Lagos Alo's richest crowd like fire. Munirat Danjuma stepped onto the stage, smiling as though she had just dragged a thief into daylight. "So this is your respectable wife, Damilare?" she asked. "A waitress you rented for 6 months?" Ibiere Alow's fingers tightened around the microphone. Across the hall, Damilare Olowoniyi pushed through the crowd, his face burning with fury. "Turn that screen off!" But Ibiere stopped him with one raised hand. "No," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "Let it remain." Then she faced the Billionaire she had married. "Before you defend me, answer them. Did you pay me to become your wife, or did you not?" Damilare froze. And in that terrible silence, everybody received their answer. But what they did not know was that the woman they were mocking had already uncovered a secret powerful enough to destroy the men laughing at her. So don't Alot leave this story halfway. Tell us where you are watching from and your local time, then subscribe. Because before those 6 months ended, the billionaire fell first, and the waitress made the whole room regret ever looking down on her. 5 months earlier, on a wet Thursday evening in Victoria Island, Ibiere Tamuno was carrying 6 plates through a restaurant full of people who believed money could make bad manners disappear. The restaurant was called Maison Azur, although there was nothing French about the shouting inside the kitchen or the generators coughing behind the building. It was one of those Lagos places where the lighting was low enough to hide the portion sizes, and the prices were high enough to make customers feel they had achieved something by ordering dinner. Ibiere moved between the tables with the calm of someone who had learned that panic only made heavy trays heavier. She was 27, slim, dark-skinned, and quick-eyed. Her black uniform was ironed sharply, though the left sleeve had been repaired by hand. Her hair was pulled into a neat bun. She knew every table, every allergy note, every impatient customer, every waiter pretending not to hear the service bell. At table 12 sat Damilare Olowoniyi, founder of Apex Coldlink Limited, a man whose name appeared in business magazines beside words like disruption, scale, and visionary. In person, he looked less like a visionary and more like a man who had forgotten what rest felt like. His navy suit fit him perfectly. His voice stayed low even when he was angry. People leaned closer when he spoke, because he had trained the world to come to him. Across from him sat a 9-year-old girl with 2 thin braids and a face too serious for her age. Iniobong Ekonem. Ini had barely touched her food. She had asked for plain grilled fish and rice. The reservation note, printed twice and highlighted in red, said Severi Kashualri. Ibiere had checked it herself. She noticed the problem before anybody else did. The garnish on Ini Elu's plate had changed. It was not the parsley the kitchen normally used. It was a pale crumble scattered over the fish, glossy with oil. Ibiere stopped so suddenly that the waiter behind her nearly walked into her tray. "Table 12. Ah," she said. "Who plated the fish?" The waiter shrugged. "Chef changed the garnish. Something premium." "What something?" "I don't know. Cashew crust, maybe." The tray in Ibiere Alow's hands felt weightless. She turned. Ini had already taken 1 bite. Damilare was standing beside the table, one hand over his other ear, speaking into his phone. "No! Move the board. Call to 7. I said 7 Akin. "If the port clearance is delayed again, suspend the contractor." Ini scratched at her neck. Ibiere dropped the tray onto the nearest service station so hard that cutlery jumped. She reached the table in seconds. "Sweetheart, did you eat the garnish?" Ini looked up, frightened. My mouth is itching. Allow's stomach tightened. Sir! She called. Damilare lifted one finger without turning around. Sir! The whole dining room shifted. Heads turned. Damilare finally faced her, irritation already in his eyes. Your niece is reacting to something. His irritation vanished. Ini Allow's lower lip had begun to swell. Damilare ended the call without a word. Ini, I can Allot breathe well. The restaurant manager, Mr. Nwachukwu, came rushing over with the useless smile of a man whose first concern was reputation. What happened? Please, let us not alarm the guests. Ibiere ignored him. Where is her emergency medication? Damilare stared at the child Allow's handbag as if he had never seen it before. The small front pocket, Ini whispered. Ibiere opened it, found the prescribed auto-injector and held it up. Sir, has she used this before? Yes, once. Call emergency services now. Tell them severe allergic reaction. We use this and still go to hospital. Mr. Nwachukwu reached for her arm. You cannot administer medication without permission. Damilare Olowoniyi's voice cut through him. She has my permission. Ibiere knelt beside Ini. Listen to me. It will hurt small, but I need you to stay still. Look at my face, not the needle. Ini Allow's eyes filled with tears. Will I die? No, Ibiere said, firm enough to make it true for that moment. Not while all of us are awake here. She helped Damilare administer the medication exactly as the instructions indicated. Then she kept Ini seated upright, loosened the collar of her dress, and asked another waiter to bring the ingredient sheet from the kitchen. Within minutes, the siren arrived outside. Damilare went with Ini in the ambulance. Before he left, he turned back. What is your name, Ibiere? His eyes remained on her for half a second longer than necessary. Then he was gone. The moment the ambulance doors closed, Mr. Nwachukwu dragged Ibiere into the corridor beside the kitchen. What nonsense was that? She stared at him. A child almost stopped breathing. You shouted at Mr. Olowoniyi in front of guests. He was on the phone. You touched a customer Allow's medication, with the guardian Allow's permission. You dropped 6 plates. Put them on my salary. His face hardened. Remove your apron. For a moment, she thought she had misheard. What? You are suspended, pending investigation. Investigate the kitchen. Do not tell me how to run my establishment. There was cashew on a plate marked severe allergy, and you created a scene. Ibiere laughed once, without humor. The scene was a child trying to breathe. Or, remove your apron. By the time she stepped into the rain, her wages for the week were still inside the office. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from her landlord and 1 message from her younger brother, Sotonye. Sis School sent the final payment notice. Don't not worry if it is not possible. I can defer. She stood beneath the restaurant awning as SUVs rolled past, splashing dirty water against the pavement. For the first time that night, her hands began to shake. At the hospital, Ini stabilized after further treatment. The doctor told Damilare that the prompt use of her emergency medication had likely prevented the reaction from worsening before they arrived. Damilare sat beside Ini Allow's bed until she fell asleep. He should have felt only relief. Instead, he kept hearing Ibiere Olowoniyi's voice. You brought a grieving child into a crowded restaurant and left her with people who did not even know what could kill her. She had said it to him in the corridor when he returned to collect Ini Allow's things. No fear, no attempt to flatter him, no interest in the envelope of cash his assistant had offered. I am not collecting money for keeping a child alive, she had said. It is compensation for your trouble, Damilare replied. My trouble is that your niece almost died because people were careless. Use your compensation to fix that. Then she had walked into the rain. 2 days later, Damilare Olowoniyi's family lawyer arrived at his Ikoyi home with a file thick enough to ruin a weekend. Barrister Kanyinsola Adarogba was 46, precise, elegant, and unimpressed by expensive furniture. She placed the file on the table and refused the coffee his housekeeper offered. Elder Edem Ekanem has filed an application for a review of Iniobong Alo's guardianship arrangements. Damilare did not move. On what basis? Neglect through absence. Excessive delegation of care. Emotional instability in the child. Inconsistent supervision. I provide everything she needs. Kanyinsola looked at him over her glasses. You provide money. I provide a home, education, medical care, security. And how many times did you attend her therapy sessions in the last 3 months? He said nothing. How many meetings with her teacher? My assistant attended. How many nights did you eat dinner with her last week? I had work. Kanyinsola closed the file. The Ekanems are not accusing you of cruelty. That is why this is serious. Their concerns are believable. Damilare Alo's jaw tightened. Ini Alo's mother named me guardian. She named you because she trusted you. That trust does not exempt you from showing up. She belongs here. She belongs where her welfare is protected. This is not a corporate acquisition, Damilare. Nobody wins a child. He walked to the window. Beyond the glass, Lagos shimmered beneath a pale sky. Traffic crawled along the road. His phone vibrated twice on the table. He ignored it. What do they want? A structured, shared care arrangement, greater involvement, and an evaluation of your household. My household is stable. You have 12 staff and no routine. I can create one. You cannot outsource emotional presence. He turned. What must I provide? Kanyinsola Alo's expression softened only slightly. Not what. Who? You must become the adult that child needs. That evening, Damilare met his cousin and chief operating officer, Ibiere Olowoniyi, at the private lounge of a hotel in Ikoyi. Ibiere was 4 years older, heavier, louder, and easier with people. He had helped Damilare build Apex Coldlink when the company owned only 2 refrigerated trucks and 1 warehouse. He was the man employees called Uncle Aiken when they wanted something approved without paperwork. He listened to the guardianship issue and shook his head. You know how these things look. He said. Single man, always traveling. House full of staff. Child still grieving. Those old people will paint you as a machine. I am not asking for public relations advice. You need more than advice. You need a home. I have a home. You have a building. Akinlolu leaned forward. Look, I am not saying go and fall in love tomorrow, but stability has a face people understand. A wife. Routine. Someone Ini already trusts. Damilare Alo's eyes narrowed. She trusts the waitress. Akinlolu gave a short laugh. The one who shouted at you, she saved Ini. So thank her. Give her a job. Damilare looked down at the amber drink in his glass. A thought arrived quietly, almost reasonably. 6 months. A structured arrangement. Enough time to stabilize Ini, resolve the review, and rebuild the household. Akinlolu watched his face and smiled. Whatever you are thinking, he said, make sure there is a lawyer. 3 days later, Damilare found Ibiere in a compound in Yaba, carrying 2 buckets up a narrow staircase because the building Alo's water pump had failed again. She stopped when she saw him beside his black SUV. No, I have not said anything. You came with a driver and that face, whatever it is, no. He glanced at the buckets. May I help? No. I need to speak with you. I am looking for work. This concerns Ini. That made her pause. She set the buckets down but did not invite him upstairs. Damilare explained the guardianship review, the need for routine, Ini Alo's refusal to cooperate with 2 new caregivers, and the temporary nature of what he wanted. He spoke carefully, like a man presenting a business proposal he had already tested in his mind. 6 months, he said. You would live in the house, maintain your independence, and help provide a stable environment for Ini. We would attend a limited number of public and family events together. Ibiere stared at him. You want to employ me as a nanny? No. What then? My wife. Silence settled between them. Somewhere inside the compound, a baby started crying. A radio played high-life music from an open window. Ibiere bent, picked up one bucket, and threw the water onto the ground between them. Not at him. Close enough. Because I carry plates, she said. You think I can also carry your lies. This is not an insult. It is exactly an insult. I would pay you 5 million lira. She laughed so sharply that two women on the balcony above them looked down. There. Now the insult has a price. You would have legal representation, separate rooms, no intimate obligations, full freedom to leave under defined circumstances. And what will I tell the child? That her uncle rented a woman because he could not sit at the dining table. I am trying to keep her. No. You are trying to keep your life unchanged while somebody else performs the part you refuse to learn. His face hardened. You do not know my life. I know you were on a business call while your niece was eating food that could kill her. That was one incident. It was one incident that nearly became a funeral. He took a slow breath. Think about the offer. I have thought about it. Ibiere leave. He left. That night, her landlord pushed a red notice beneath her door. 7 days to vacate. The restaurant sent an email confirming her dismissal for insubordination and unsafe conduct. Her final wages would be withheld, pending an internal review. Sotone called from Port Harcourt and tried to sound cheerful. I can postpone the polytechnic admission, he said. It is not death. You worked for this admission, and you have worked for me since Mama died. Let me breathe small too. Ibiere sat on the edge of her mattress, staring at the damp wall. How much is left? Don Alowori, Sotonye, 840,000 including accommodation. She closed her eyes. 5 million naira. It was not enough to change a life forever. But it was enough to pay school fees, secure rent, buy equipment, and reopen the small catering dream her mother had left unfinished. The next morning, she called a lawyer recommended by an old customer from the restaurant. Barrister Boma Oruwari listened without interrupting. When Ibiere finished, she said, Do not meet him again without me. 2 days later, Ibiere entered Damilare Olowoniyi's office at Apex Coldlink Olowoniyi's headquarters in Apapa, carrying a notebook, and wearing the same plain blue dress she had worn to her mother Olowoniyi's burial. Boma walked beside her in a cream suit, her expression sharp enough to cut paper. Damilare rose from behind his desk. You came. I came to negotiate, Ibiere said. Do not confuse the two. Boma placed a marked-up draft on the table. No sexual obligation, no pregnancy clause, no authority over her employment, education, friendships, movements, or communication. No penalty for refusing physical contact. No requirement to lie before a court, government agency, or medical professional. No confidentiality protection for abuse, criminal conduct, child endangerment, or public safety risks. Damilare looked at Kanyensola, who had joined by video call. Kanyensola said, Those provisions are reasonable, Boma continued. 2 million naira into escrow after execution. 3 million after 6 months of completed public and household obligations. Housing, clothing required for events, security and transportation are separate expenses. She has her own room. She can continue school. She can terminate immediately for violence, threats, coercion, or material misrepresentation. Damilare folded his arms. Anything else? Ibiere answered. You will attend Ini Olowoniyi's grief counseling. That is not relevant to your compensation. It is relevant to the reason you claim you need me. I have meetings. Then keep your meetings and lose your niece. The room went still. Boma did not smile, but something in her eyes approved. Ibiere went on. 3 family dinners every week. No phones at the table. Her allergy plan must be known by every adult in the house. You will attend at least 1 school meeting every month. You will not use her face in any media campaign without the approval of her therapist and guardians. You are writing rules for my house. You asked me to make it look like a home. Damilare stared at her for a long time. Then he picked up a pen. 6 months, he said. 6 months of obligations, Boma corrected. A legal marriage does not vanish because your private document says time is up. Canyon Solar nodded from the screen. Any future dissolution must follow the law. Nobody is promising an instant divorce. Ibiere looked directly at Damilare. And the 5 million does not buy my feelings. I understand. No, you have heard. Understanding will show later. He signed. She signed after Boma read every page again. The civil ceremony took place 12 days later at a registry office, with no music, no flowers, and no guests beyond lawyers. Ini and 2 witnesses. Ini wore a yellow dress and held Ibiere Olowoniyi's hand throughout. When the registrar pronounced them husband and wife, Damilare gave Ibiere a brief nod. No kiss, no performance. Outside, photographers still appeared. Somebody had leaked the date, Mrs. Olowoniyi. How did you meet? One shouted. Ibiere looked at Damilare. He answered, through my niece. That was true enough to survive the moment. In the car, Ini sat between them. She looked at Ibiere Olowoniyi's ring, then at the road. Are you going to disappear when 6 months finish too? Damilare Olowoniyi's shoulders stiffened. Ibiere did not offer the easy lie. I don't know what will happen after 6 months, she said. But while I am here, I will not disappear without telling you the truth first. Ini thought about that. Then she slipped her small hand into Ibiere Olowoniyi's. Damilare watched from the other side of the car. And for the first time since the agreement began, he understood that 5 million naira had purchased nothing simple. The house in Ikoyi had 6 bedrooms, 3 sitting rooms, swimming pool nobody used, and a dining table long enough to make every meal feel like a negotiation. On Ibiere Olowoniyi's first morning there, she woke before 5 because years of restaurant work had trained her body to distrust sleep. For a few seconds she forgot where she was. Then she saw the cream walls, the heavy curtains, the polished wardrobe, and the unopened boxes of clothes arranged by a stylist she had never met. A note rested on the dressing table. Breakfast, 7 a.m. Publicist, 10 c.m. Tailoring, 1 p.m. Family photographs, 4 p.m. She carried the note downstairs. The kitchen was already awake. 2 cooks moved around one another, while the housekeeper, Mrs. Adunola, supervised with the grave concentration of a woman conducting surgery. Mrs. Adunola was in her late 50s, broad-shouldered and immaculate. She had worked for the Olowoniyi family for 22 years, and had already decided Ibiere was temporary trouble. Madame Olowoniyi's breakfast will be served in the morning room, she said. Where is Ini eating? With her nanny in the children Olowoniyi's lounge, and Damilare. Mr. Olowoniyi has already taken coffee in his study. Ibiere looked at the trays being prepared for 3 different rooms. So, everybody in this house eats alone? Mrs. Adunola lifted one eyebrow. Everybody has a schedule. That is not an answer. It is how the house runs. Ibiere opened the refrigerator. The shelves were packed with imported cheese, juices, sauces, and labeled containers. On the second shelf sat a jar of cashew butter beside Ini Olowoniyi's yogurt. Her body went cold. Who uses this? One of the security men. It is on the same shelf as Ini Olowoniyi's food. The jar is closed. That is not enough. Cross-contact can happen through hands, knives, cloths, trays. Where is the allergy plan? Mrs. Adunola Olowoniyi's expression changed from suspicion to irritation. Madam, we have cared for that child before you arrived. And she nearly died before I arrived. The kitchen went silent. Ibiere placed the jar on the counter. From today, no cashew enters this kitchen. Anything containing tree nuts is labeled and stored separately in a locked container. Every person who handles Ini Alo's food must know where her medication is and what symptoms to watch for. You cannot enter my kitchen and change. It is Damilare Olowoniyi's house, your kitchen, and Ini Alo's life. We can argue about territory after we secure the child. A voice came from the doorway. What is happening? Damilare stood there in shirt sleeves, already holding his phone. Mrs. Adunola answered first. Your wife is reorganizing the entire household before breakfast. I am removing an allergen from the child Alo's food area, Ibiere said. And I am asking why the 3 people who claim to be a family take breakfast in 3 different rooms. Damilare glanced at his watch. Because I have a call in 6 minutes. You signed for 3 family dinners each week. Dinner is not breakfast. You are correct. Congratulations. His eyes narrowed. Ibiere turned to the cook. Please, where is Ini? In the lounge, madam. She found the girl watching cartoons with untouched oats in front of her. Why are you not eating? It tastes like wall. Ibiere sat beside her and tasted it. The wall is innocent. Ini looked at her, then giggled before she could stop herself. What do you like in oats? Nah, banana. Cinnamon. Not too much milk. Good. Come and show the kitchen. When they returned, Damilare was still there. Ini stopped in the doorway, as if seeing him at breakfast was unusual. Uncle, are you not going to work? I am working from home this morning. Can you eat here? His phone rang. Ibiere watched him. He silenced it. For 10 minutes, he said. It was a poor beginning, but it was a beginning. The publicist arrived at 10 with 3 assistants, garment bags, and a presentation titled The Olowoniyi Love Story. Munirat Danjuma walked behind them. Ibiere recognized her from magazines. Munirat was one of those women who entered a room as if the room had been warned. She wore a white suit, gold earrings, and a smile that showed no warmth. Dummy, she said, kissing the air beside his cheek. Congratulations. You have given Lagos the surprise of the year. Damilare did not return the familiarity. Munirat, this is Ibiere. I know. Munirat looked her over. Maisons Azure, yes? I worked there. How extraordinary. Nothing in her voice suggested she meant it kindly. They moved to the sitting room. On the screen, the publicist displayed possible headlines. Billionaire finds love in unexpected place. From waitress to wife, Damilare Olowoniyi's modern fairy tale. The woman he rescued became the woman who saved his home. Ibiere raised her hand. No. The publicist blinked. Which one do you dislike? All. Munirat crossed her legs. They are draft concepts. They are lies. Damilare leaned back. We need a public explanation. You need privacy. You married a public figure. I married a man with a guardianship problem. Let us not decorate it. One assistant coughed into her hand. Munirat Olowoniyi's smile tightened. The public responds to emotional narratives. Your background creates relatability. My poverty creates entertainment. That is not what I said. It is what your slides said. You want a photograph of a rich man lifting a poor woman out of darkness. I was not on the street. I had a job. Your friend Olow's type of customer helped me lose it. Damilare Olowoniyi's jaw moved. I have contacted the restaurant. Did I ask you to? They are reviewing your dismissal. I asked for my wages, not rescue. Munirat tilted her head. What would you prefer the profile to say? The truth. I studied hospitality management for 2 years before my mother became ill. I worked in food service for 6 years. I helped raise my brother. I know more about restaurant operations than the people who fired me. Marriage did not give me dignity. The room became quiet. Damilare looked at the slide again, then at the publicist. Delete the rescue language. Munirat turned. Dami, we need aspiration. We need accuracy. It was the first time he supported Ibiere in front of someone from his world. He did not look pleased about it. That evening was the first contracted family dinner. Damilare arrived 12 minutes late and placed his phone beside his plate. Ibiere picked it up, walked to the sideboard and placed it inside a drawer. He stared at her. What are you doing? Protecting the contract. That phone contains information worth more than this house. Then it will be safe in the drawer. Ini watched them with wide eyes. Damilare held out his hand. Give it back. No phones at the table. I am expecting a call from Rotterdam. Rotterdam can eat without you. Ini laughed into her water. Damilare looked at his niece. Something in his face loosened. He sat. For the first 5 minutes, nobody knew what to say. Then Ibiere asked Ini about school. Fine. What happened that was not fine? Ini pushed peas around her plate. A girl said my mother died because God needed her more. Damilare Olowoniyi's fork stopped. What did your teacher say? Ibiere asked. She said the girl was trying to comfort me. Did it comfort you? No. It made me angry at God, Ibiere nodded. Then it was not comfort. Sometimes people say tidy things because they are afraid of messy pain. Damilare looked at her. What should I say when people ask about my mother? Ini asked. You can say whatever is true that day. You can say you miss her. You can say you don't a lot want to talk. You can say thank you and walk away. Can I say it is none of their business? Ibiere considered. With good grammar, yes. Ini smiled. Damilare did not touch his phone for the rest of dinner. 3 days later, the Ekonem family came for a formal visit. Elder Edom Ekonem arrived in a dark senator outfit, walking with a cane he did not seem to need. His wife, Uduak, wore a green wrapper and carried grief with dignity. They had traveled from Uyo and had no interest in Damilare Olowoniyi's wealth. Munirat also came, claiming she needed to manage press risk around the new marriage. 2 of Damilare Olowoniyi's aunts joined them, along with Akinlolu and his wife. The dinner began politely and turned poisonous before the soup arrived. Aunt Monique examined Ibiere Olowoniyi's dress. Very tasteful. Did the stylist choose it? Yes. You will learn these things with time. I already know how to wear clothes. Akinlolu hid a smile behind his glass. Munirat asked, which finishing school did you attend? None. University? I left Lagos State Polytechnic when my mother became sick. How unfortunate. It was expensive, not unfortunate. I took care of her. Damilare shifted in his seat. Munirat. I am only getting to know her. Elder Edom watched without expression. Aunt Monique pointed to the cutlery. The smaller fork is for the first course. Ibiere looked down. I know. Of course. Restaurant experience. There it was. The small laugh around the table, soft enough to deny, sharp enough to wound. Ini sat beside Ibiere, saying nothing. The dessert arrived, a chocolate tart with caramel sauce and crushed nuts. Ibiere looked at the garnish. What nut is this? The server froze. Hazelnut, madam. Was it prepared in a nut-free area? Munirat sighed. It is not for Ini. The server had already placed a smaller plate before the child. Ibiere lifted it immediately. The same utensil touched both plates. The server turned pale. Mrs. Adunola stepped forward. Madam, Ini Io's own tart has no nuts. The serving tongs were used on the hazelnut plate first. Munirat waved one hand. This is becoming dramatic. Ibiere turned to her. An allergic reaction is not drama because the victim is a child. We all care about Ini. Then tell me where her emergency medication is. Munirat opened her mouth. No answer came. Ibiere looked at Aunt Monique. You? The woman looked offended. Akinlolu? He shook his head slowly. Then Ibiere faced the entire table. You are checking which fork I use. You are checking my school, my dress, and the work I did to survive. Yet the only person at this table who knew that serving spoon could harm Inni is the waitress. The silence was complete. Inni pushed her chair closer to Ibiere. Uduak Ekanem Alo's eyes filled. Though she blinked the tears away. Damilare stood. "Remove every dessert," he told the staff. "From tomorrow, nobody serves Inni without documented allergen controls. Mrs. Adunola arranged training for the entire household. Ibiere will approve the procedure." Mrs. Adunola looked startled. Munirat Alo's face went still. Akinlolu studied Ibiere with new attention. Not amusement now, calculation. After dinner, Ld Edem asked to speak with Ibiere alone in the courtyard. The night air smelled of wet leaves and generator smoke. "You care for the child," he said. "Yes. Why? She is a child." "That answer is too easy." Ibiere folded her arms. "Because adults keep making her grief about themselves. Damilare wants to prove he can care for her. You want to prove he cannot. She is standing in the middle, wondering which love will remove her from the other." The old man Alo's mouth tightened. "You are bold. I am tired. Do you love my granddaughter?" Ibiere looked toward the lit windows. Inni was showing Damilare something on a tablet. He was listening, or at least trying to. "I am becoming attached to her," she said. "That is not the same as claiming her." Elder Edom nodded once. It was not approval, but it was the first brick in a bridge. At Apex Coldlink, Akinlolu was less interested in bridges. He had spent years running operations while Damilare appeared on magazine covers. He knew which customs officer required patience, which union leader required respect, which port delay could be solved by paperwork, and which one demanded a phone call after midnight. In his mind, Apex belonged to him as much as it belonged to the cousin, whose name was printed on the founder, Alo's plaque. The problem was that the company had grown beyond the habits that built it. Akinlolu had created a network of subcontractors to move food when the company Alo's own refrigerated trucks were unavailable. Some were legitimate. Some existed only on paper. Some belonged to friends who returned part of inflated payments to him. The most dangerous arrangement involved thermal data. Apex promised clients continuous temperature control. But fuel prices had climbed, and several subcontractors shut cooling units during long waits to reduce costs. When the temperature records showed unsafe rises, supervisors edited the reports before they reached clients. Most products looked normal by delivery. Most customers never tested. Most was not all. The restaurant incident had involved a different failure, but it brought attention to food safety. Ibiere Alo's new presence made Akinlolu uncomfortable because she noticed what executives dismissed. 2 weeks after the family dinner, Apex sponsored a community nutrition program at a primary school in Surulere. The event had been arranged before the marriage, and now became an opportunity for public photographs. Ibiere agreed to attend only because children would be served. Munirat dressed her in a yellow blouse and instructed her to smile beside Damilare while volunteers distributed meals. "Do not discuss policy," Munirat said. "Do not answer questions about your background. Keep it warm and simple. I know how to speak. You know how to speak as yourself. Today you are speaking as Mrs. Olowoniyi." Ibiere looked at her. Same mouth. The food arrived in insulated boxes carrying Apex seals. Workers unloaded frozen chicken, vegetables and yogurt packs from a refrigerated van. Ibiere stood near the receiving table and watched condensation run down one container. She touched the outer surface. It was too warm. "Please, where is the receiving temperature sheet?" she asked the driver. He looked at her blouse, her ring, then at the event coordinator. "Madam, everything is complete." "Show me." A supervisor approached. "Mrs. Olowoniyi, we have handled this." The boxes are sweating. It is Lagos. Frozen product should not feel soft because Lagos is hot. She pressed the corner of a chicken pack through the plastic. It yielded. Do not serve this. The supervisor laughed nervously. Madam, the children are waiting. Then give them the shelf-stable meals until this is checked. Akinlolu appeared behind her. What is the issue? The cold chain may have broken. He smiled for the cameras. My dear, these are professional logistics teams, and I worked at receiving doors. I know what thawing looks like. You served food, he said quietly. You did not build a logistics company. Ibiere looked at the delivery sheet clipped to the table. The temperature field had been filled in before the handheld probe was removed from its case. She pulled the paper closer. Then why did your professional team record -18 degrees before measuring anything? The driver Alo's face changed. Akinlolu Alo's smile remained, but his eyes did not. Damilare approached with 2 reporters behind him. What is going on? Akinlolu answered. Your wife is delaying the program because a box has condensation. Ibiere held up the sheet. The temperature was pre-recorded. The product is soft. Measure it now. Damilare glanced at the cameras. This can be handled after distribution. No. Food safety is handled before distribution. His voice hardened. Step aside. She stared at him. There were children behind them holding bowls. No. The reporters moved closer. Damilare Alo's face became unreadable. Then he turned to the quality manager. Or test every batch. The first pack measured far above the required frozen temperature. The second was worse. Distribution stopped. Shelf-stable meals were brought from the school store, while the frozen shipment was quarantined. No child became ill. But the photographs from the event showed no smiling billionaire couple. They showed workers carrying rejected food back to a truck, and Damilare standing beside his wife with anger in his posture. In the car, he waited until the privacy screen rose before speaking. You embarrassed my operations team in front of the press. Ibiere turned slowly. Your operations team falsified a temperature record in front of children. You could have told me privately. They were already opening the boxes. You do not know the full procedure. I know you wanted me to smile while unsafe food was served. That is not what I wanted. It is what you almost allowed. His hand closed around the edge of the seat. You are in my company as my wife, not as an auditor. And I am in this car as a human being who saw danger. You always need to challenge me. You always need truth to arrive with an appointment. He looked out the window. For the rest of the drive, neither spoke. That night, an internal quality manager called Damilare. The shipment had left the main warehouse at the correct temperature. The data recorder showed a 4-hour gap during transit. The subcontracted vehicle had stopped twice. Its refrigeration unit appeared to have been switched off. The delivery sheet had indeed been completed in advance. Damilare ended the call and sat alone in his study. Ibiere had been right. Again. He found her in the kitchen after midnight, making tea. She did not look at him. If you have come to tell me I damaged your image, morning will do. The shipment was unsafe. I know. The team falsified the receiving record. I know. He leaned against the counter. You could try not to enjoy this, she turned. You think I enjoy being right about food that could harm children? No, he exhaled. That was unfair. Yes, I have ordered an internal review. Independent. My quality department reports through operations. He frowned. How do you know? I asked. Who? The people carrying the boxes. They know who signs their warnings and who ignores them. He stared at her. She lifted her mug. People at the bottom always know where the building is cracking. Nobody asks because their uniforms are cheap. The words stayed with him long after she went upstairs. The next morning, He hired an external food safety auditor. He did not tell Akinlolu until the engagement letter had been signed. The external review changed the mood inside Apex Coldlink. Managers who had spent years speaking confidently began using phrases like, "to the best of my knowledge." Drivers who had never been invited above the ground floor were called into private interviews. Old delivery logs came out of storage. Temperature records were compared against fuel purchases, toll receipts, and vehicle locations. Akinlolu treated the investigation as a personal insult. "You brought strangers into the company because your new wife touched one warm box," he said in Damilare Olowoniyi's office. "She found a false receiving record. One careless supervisor. The vehicle data has a 4-hour gap. Arca technology fails. Fuel use dropped during the same period." Akinlolu spread his hands. "Do you know how many deliveries we make every month? If you examine any operation long enough, you will find errors. Errors are not edited data. Be careful, Dami. You are beginning to let domestic emotion influence corporate judgment." Damilare Olowoniyi's eyes sharpened. "Say what you mean." "I mean you met a waitress, married her within weeks, and now she is telling you how to run the company we built." "We built it, yes. That does not make it immune to scrutiny." Akinlolu leaned across the desk. "You built the name. I built the machine. Do not forget that." He left before Damilare could answer. At home, the machine of family life was also resisting change. Ini Olowoniyi's therapist, Dr. Mfon Essien, had asked Damilare and Ibiere to attend a joint session. Damilare arrived 18 minutes late. Ini sat in a soft chair holding a stuffed elephant. She did not look at him when he entered. "I am sorry," he said. "Traffic." Dr. Mfon glanced at the wall clock. "Your driver called ahead. You left the office 9 minutes before the appointment." Damilare looked at Ibiere. She held his gaze. She had clearly told the truth. He sat. Dr. Mfon asked Ini to draw her household. Ini drew herself in the middle of a large page. On one side, she drew Ibiere near a kitchen table. On the other, she drew Mrs. Adunola, her nanny, and 2 security men. She drew Damilare at the top corner beside a small rectangle. "What is this?" Damilare asked. "Your phone. Why am I far away?" "You are always calling somebody," he swallowed. Dr. Mfon did not rescue him from the discomfort. Children often represent emotional distance physically. Damilare stared at the drawing. Ini added Elder Edom and Uduak near the bottom. Then she drew a line between them and herself. "Why is the line broken?" Ibiere asked. "Because if I love Grandpa and Grandma, Uncle thinks I want to leave. If I love Uncle," Grandma cries. Damilare looked at the child. "I have never told you not to love them. You make your quiet face when they call." "What quiet face?" Ini copied him perfectly. Jaw set, eyes cold, lips pressed flat. Even Dr. Mfon nearly smiled. Damilare rubbed one hand over his face. "I did not know I was doing that." "You do many things you don't know," Ini said. The statement landed harder because it was not cruel. Dr. Mhofen asked each adult to name one thing they would change that week. Ibiere promised not to ask Ini questions about her feelings when Ini said she needed silence. Damilare promised to attend the school Olowoniyi's parent meeting himself. Ini promised to tell one adult when she felt afraid instead of hiding. On the way home, Damilare sat beside Ibiere in the back of the car. "You could have covered for me," he said. "At therapy? You told her I left late. She asked why you were late. You are my wife. For public events and household stability. Not to manufacture alibis." He looked away. "You enjoy reminding me." "I remind you because you keep forgetting." The next week, he attended the school meeting. He arrived early. He listened while Ini Olowoniyi's teacher explained that she was completing assignments but isolating herself during play. He did not ask his assistant to take notes. He wrote them himself. Afterward, He cancelled a flight to Abuja and took Ini for ice cream. Ibiere declined to join them. "You should have time alone with her," she said. It was the first time Damilare realized she was not trying to become indispensable. That made him trust her more. It also frightened him. The household began changing in small, measurable ways. 3 dinners became 4, because Ini started requesting them. Damilare Olowoniyi's phone stayed in the drawer, though sometimes it vibrated so persistently that everybody looked at it. Mrs. Adunola completed allergy response training with the staff and later admitted, in a voice almost too low to hear, that Ibiere Olowoniyi's storage system was better. The cooks began asking Ibiere for feedback on menus. She never entered the kitchen without greeting every worker by name. She also enrolled in an online course to complete modules in hospitality operations and food safety. Damilare discovered this when he found her studying at 2 in the morning. "You can use the library," he said. "I am fine here." She sat at the kitchen island with a borrowed laptop, 3 notebooks, and a cup of coffee that had gone cold. "The library has proper lighting. The library feels like a place people enter to take photographs." He almost smiled. "It has books. Most still look unopened. That is insulting. Open them and prove me wrong." He poured himself water and remained there. "What are you studying? Hazard analysis, receiving controls, small business costing. You plan to reopen your mother Olow's catering company. Mama cooked well but mixed business money with household money. She sold on credit to everybody she loved and chased payment from people she feared offending. Kindness without records can kill a business." Damilare pulled out the stool opposite her. "How much would you need?" Her expression changed immediately. Do not what? Turn every dream I mention into an amount you can transfer." "I was asking a question. You were reaching for your usual solution." He leaned back. "Money is not always an insult." "I know. I accepted 5 million. The directness unsettled him. She continued. "But I need to know I can build something without becoming another project in your portfolio." He studied her face. "You do not let anybody help you. I let Boma help me. I let teachers help me. I let people help when the help does not put a collar around my neck. I have never tried to control you." She looked at him over the rim of her mug. "You offered a woman facing eviction more money than she had seen in years, in exchange for entering your house and carrying your name. Let us not pretend power was absent because the contract had good grammar." He had no defense. The generator changed tone outside. For a moment, the lights went out before the backup system caught. Ibiere closed the laptop. "Enough study. My brain has resigned." She found bread, eggs, and tomatoes. Damilare watched her light the gas stove. "You are cooking at 2 in the morning." "I forgot dinner." "You enforced dinner." "I made sure Ini ate. I was finishing an assignment." He loosened his tie. "Make 2. You have chefs, they are asleep. So should you. Make 2. She did. They ate egg sandwiches at the kitchen island while rain struck the windows. Without the suit jacket and the office around him, Damilare looked younger, almost ordinary. Ibiere told him about her mother, Ibiere Tamuno, who had cooked for weddings, church meetings, and burial ceremonies. Ibiere could estimate rice for 200 people by looking at the pot, but she never learned to price her own labor. When illness came, the business collapsed because it had no reserve. Damilare told her about his younger sister, Ini Olow's mother. "She could walk into my office during a board meeting and ask why everybody was pretending to understand a bad idea." He said, "You miss her." "I failed her." "How?" "She was ill for 8 months. I paid for specialists. I arranged treatment abroad. I answered every call from the doctors. That is not failure. I missed her birthday because of an acquisition. She died 4 days later." Ibiere did not offer him a tidy sentence. She waited. Damilare stared at his hands. She asked me to sit with her. I told her I would come after the deal closed. The deal closed? Yes, and she died, yes. There was no cruelty in her repetition, only truth. That is why you keep trying to solve it with money, she said. You are repeating the only kind of love you know how to measure. He looked up. Nobody had ever spoken to him that way and remained in the room. The lights returned fully. Ibiere rose to wash the plates. Damilare took one from her hand. I can wash a plate. Can you? He turned on the tap. Tooch detergent poured out. She laughed. It was not polite laughter. It came from deep inside her, surprising both of them. Damilare smiled before he could stop himself. From that night, he began noticing her absence. When she attended class, the house felt too large. When she spoke to Sotonye on the phone and slipped into the warmer rhythm of home, Damilare listened from rooms away without understanding why. When a former colleague named Tega visited to deliver old study notes, Damilare disliked how easily the man made her laugh. At dinner, he asked, "Who was your visitor?" Ibiere looked up. "A friend. What kind of friend?" "The kind that brings notes." "How long have you known him?" Inialo's eyes moved between them. Ibiere placed her fork down. Why? Damilare realized too late that he had no acceptable answer. I was making conversation. No, conversation is. How was your day? That was an interview. He looked at Ini, who was smiling into her rice. Eat, he told the child. I am eating. Ibiere Alo's mouth twitched. That same week, Damilare cancelled a dinner with Munirat to attend Ini Alo's school presentation. Munirat arrived at his office the next day without an appointment. You have changed, she said. I had a school event. You had a fundraising dinner with 3 potential investors. Akinlolu attended. That is not the point. What is the point? Munirat walked to the window. When we were engaged, you missed my father Elo's 60th birthday because a warehouse system failed. You told me responsibility came before sentiment. I was wrong. She turned slowly. She taught you that? Inni did. Do not insult me, Dami. The waitress moves into your house and suddenly you discover family. Ibiere has a name. I know her name. Lagos knows her name. That does not mean we know her intentions. She has been transparent. Munirat laughed softly. Poor people become excellent actors when the prize is large enough. Damilare Alo's voice dropped. Leave my office. Her face changed. You are defending her. I am refusing to listen to you. Reduce her to her bank balance. Her bank balance is why she married you. The truth in that sentence cut differently from the contempt. Damilare stood. Leave. Munirat collected her handbag. At the door, she paused. Be careful. A woman can respect your niece and still be using you. After she left, Damilare sat alone and asked himself a question he had been avoiding. Was he falling in love with Ibiere? The answer came too quickly. Yes, he did not tell her. He did what powerful men often do when emotions threaten their control. He tried to organize them. He began coming home earlier. He arranged for a shelf of business books in the library to be replaced with hospitality texts. He asked his assistant to research equipment for small commercial kitchens. When Ibiere discovered the list on his desk, she was furious. I told you not to fund my business. I did not buy anything. You instructed people to price it. I was gathering information. For a dream that is not yours. He stood from his desk. Why must everything become a battle? Because you enter other people, Alau's lives like you are acquiring property. I am trying to support you. Support waits for consent. His frustration rose. You accepted my money when you needed it. The moment the words left him, he knew he had crossed a line. Ibiere became very still. Yes, she said. I did. That is not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. You think the money gives you moral credit. No. Say it properly. You believe because I accepted your offer, I should accept all your other decisions with gratitude. He came around the desk. I was angry, and anger exposes what politeness hides. She removed the ring from her finger and placed it beside his laptop. I am invoking the review clause. Boma will contact Canyon Solar. His chest tightened. You are leaving? I am taking 48 hours away from this house. What about Inni? Do not use her to stop me. He stopped. That sentence held him where he stood. Ibiere packed a small bag and went to Boma Alow's flat in Lekki. She told Inni she needed time to resolve an adult disagreement and promised to call that evening. Inni nodded, but fear returned to her eyes. At school the next day, two girls whispered that Ibiere was leaving because she had found a richer man. One of them had heard it from a parent who read gossip blogs. Inni pushed the girl. The teacher called Damilare. By the time his driver reached the school, Inni had disappeared. Her backpack was found beside a side gate used by delivery workers. Damilare Olow's world narrowed to one sound, his own heartbeat. Security teams spread across Lagos. The police were notified. School cameras showed Inni leaving with no adult. Wearing her uniform and carrying a small amount of cash, Damilare called Ibiere. She is gone. The anger between them vanished. What was she wearing? School uniform. Blue backpack. Did she take her phone? No. Any money? Maybe from her lunch purse. Where does she go when she wants to feel close to her mother? I don't know. The silence that followed accused him more than any insult. Ibiere closed her eyes and searched through every conversation she had shared with Inni. A place where nobody asks questions. A place that smells like Mama Alow's stew. A place where children can sit in the kitchen. The community kitchen in Yaba, she said. Mama Ejiro Alow's place. Inni came with me there last month. Damilare Olow's voice broke. Send the address. I am closer. I am going now. She found Inni beneath a wooden preparation table at the back of the Safe Bowl community kitchen, knees pulled to her chest. Mama Ejiro had not yet arrived. A volunteer had discovered the girl, but recognized her from Ibiere Olow's visit and kept the doors locked while waiting. Ibiere crouched several feet away. I am not coming closer until you say. Inni Olow's face was swollen from crying. You left. I told you I would call. Everybody says that before they leave. I was angry with your uncle. Not with you. You will finish 6 months and go. Ibiere Olow's throat tightened. Maybe I will leave the house. That is an adult decision we have not made. But leaving a house is not the same as deleting a person. Grandpa wants me. Uncle wants me. You want money. Everybody wants something. The words were too old for 9. What do you want? Ibiere asked. Inni stared at her. Nobody asks me that. I am asking now. I want Grandma to stop crying when I go home. I want Uncle to stop making that face when Grandpa calls. I want to sleep without dreaming that my mother is calling me and I cannot find the door. Ibiere Olow's eyes burned. You should never have had to carry all that alone. Damilare arrived with 2 security men and a police officer. He rushed through the back door, then stopped when Ibiere raised her hand. Inni had crawled farther beneath the table. Damilare removed his jacket and knelt on the floor. His trousers touched spilled flour. He did not notice. Inni, he said. She looked away. I am not going to force you out. I only need to see that you are safe. I am safe here. Yes. His voice shook. I can see that. You will send me to Grandpa? No decision will be made today. You and Grandpa are fighting because of me. Damilare lowered himself until he was sitting on the floor. We are fighting because the adults have made mistakes, not because of you. Will Ibiere leave? He glanced at Ibiere. For once, he did not try to control the answer. That is her decision, he said. I hurt her. She has the right to decide what she needs. Ini looked at him properly then. Damilare continued. I also hurt you by making you feel that love is a competition. You are allowed to love Grandpa and Grandma. You are allowed to miss your mother. You are allowed to be angry with me. Tears ran down his face before he realized he was crying. I have been paying people to handle the things I was afraid to feel, he said. That is not your fault. Ini crawled out slowly. She did not run into his arms. She sat beside him. After a minute, she leaned against his shoulder. Damilare closed his eyes. Ibiere turned away to give them privacy. That night, after Ini was examined and brought home, Damilare stood outside Ibiere Alo's room. She had returned only because the child asked her to stay until morning. I was wrong, he said. Yes, I used the money against you. Yes, I am sorry. She waited. He did not add an excuse. He did not say he had been stressed. He did not mention what he had provided. Ibiere nodded. Thank you for saying it plainly. I do not want you to leave. That is not enough reason for me to stay. I know, do you? He looked at her. I am beginning to. She did not put the ring back on that night, but she remained in the house. The next morning, Damilare drove Ini to school himself. Then he called Boma and asked her to arrange an amendment, stating that any personal or romantic relationship between him and Ibiere would require separate, explicit consent, and could not affect payment, housing during the notice period, or completion compensation. Boma was silent for several seconds. Did Ibiere ask for this? No. Why are you asking? Because I have feelings for her, and I do not want the contract to turn those feelings into pressure. That is the first sensible thing you have said since this began. He accepted the insult. A week later, during a quiet evening in the kitchen, Damilare nearly kissed Ibiere. They had been reviewing a new allergy plan for Ini Alo's school. She reached across him for a document. He turned. Their faces were close. The room seemed to hold its breath. Ibiere did not move away immediately. Neither did he. Then she stepped back. No, Damilare. Alo's hands dropped to his sides. All right. She studied him, perhaps expecting anger. He gave her none. You paid me to live in your house, she said. Until that agreement is over, how can I be certain that saying no will not cost me something? It will not. I believe you are trying to mean that. But the structure still exists. He nodded. I understand. No gifts, no business funding, no using Ini to create private moments. All right. And do not punish me with silence. He almost smiled. I am naturally quiet. You are naturally impossible. That too. He left the kitchen. Ibiere remained by the counter, one hand pressed to her chest. She had wanted him to kiss her. That was precisely why she had stopped it. Desire did not erase power. Feeling did not cancel caution. A woman could want a man and still refuse the conditions surrounding him. Damilare respected the boundary. He stopped sending clothes beyond what public events required. He never entered her room without invitation. He did not ask who called her. He did not offer money for her business again. Instead, he changed where it cost him. He attended therapy. He created a fixed schedule with Ini and honored it. He admitted to Elder Edom that the grandparents' Alo concerns were partly justified. He established an independent line for drivers and warehouse workers to report safety failures without going through operations. He also ordered that the external audit expand across 3 years of subcontracted deliveries. That decision pushed Akinlolu from fear into action. The first attack came through a gossip blog at 6:30 on a Monday morning. Billionaire Alice mystery bridioed rent days before secret wedding. The article included photographs of Ibiere Alo's old compound, her former uniform, and a copy of the eviction notice that had been pushed beneath her door. It described Sotonye Alo's school fees, her mother Alo's failed catering business, and the 2 million naira transfer deposited shortly after the registry ceremony. By 8:00 the story had been copied across social media. By 9, strangers had decided who she was. Gold digger, professional victim, smart village girl, a woman who used a sick child to enter a billionaire Ilo's home. At 10, reporters blocked the gate of the Ikoyi house. One shouted through the bars, "Mrs. Olowoniyi, did you marry him because you were about to become homeless?" Another called, "How much did he pay your brother Alo's school fees?" Ini heard the voices from upstairs. She came down holding her school bag. "Are they talking about us?" Ibiere knelt and adjusted the girl's collar. "They are talking without enough information. Are you a gold digger?" The question hit with the innocent violence of childhood. No. What is a gold digger? A name people use when they want to reduce a woman, Alo's choices to money. "Did uncle give you money?" Ibiere looked across the hallway. Damilare stood near the study door. His face was hard, but he did not interrupt. "Yes," Ibiere said. "There was money involved in how I entered this house." Ini Alo's eyes widened. "Why?" "Because adults sometimes make complicated agreements when they are afraid. Your uncle was afraid of losing you. I needed money and stability. We agreed to help each other for a period of time. Were you pretending to like me?" "No." Ibiere Alo's answer came instantly. "Never. How do I know?" "You cannot know because I say it. You know by what I do repeatedly, even when there is no camera and no reward." Ini thought about this, then nodded slowly. Damilare drove her to school through the back gate. When he returned, he found Ibiere in the sitting room with Boma and Canyon Sola. "We need an injunction against publication of private financial information," Damilare said. Boma shook her head. "We can pursue the source and challenge unlawful disclosure, but the story is already everywhere. Then we issue a denial." "A denial of what?" Ibiere asked. He stopped. "The details are arranged to imply manipulation," he said. "But the eviction notice was real. The transfer was real. We do not have to explain the agreement. Then people will fill the silence." Canyon Sola looked at Ibiere. "There is also the guardianship mediation next week. Anything said publicly may be raised there." Damilare began pacing. "This leak came from someone with access to private records." Boma said, "The eviction notice may have come from the landlord. The transfer record is more serious. I will find who did it." Ibiere watched him. "And while you are finding them, what happens to me? You stay protected here, behind gates, until the noise settles." She laughed bitterly. "That is easy for you. This house is your normal life. For me, it becomes a cage. What do you suggest?" "I continue my classes. I visit the community kitchen. I do not hide as if poverty is evidence of a crime. It may not be safe. Then provide security without taking my movement." Damilare looked ready to argue. Then he remembered the amendment, the boundary, the promise not to use protection as control. "All right," he said. "You choose the schedule. Security stays at a distance unless needed." That afternoon, Ibiere walked into her training center while phones turned toward her. A woman in the corridor whispered, loudly enough to be heard. "Some people study how to manage hotels. Some study how to marry them." Ibiere stopped. For 1 second, anger flashed across her face. Then she walked into class and took her seat. Her lecturer, Mrs. Adefisayo, closed the door and began teaching as if dignity could also be defended by refusing spectacle. After class, she handed Ibiere a marked assignment, 87%. "You understand systems," the lecturer said. "Do not allow gossip to make you forget your mind." That sentence carried Ibiere through the week. The second attack was more dangerous. An anonymous account posted that Ibiere had staged Ini Alo's allergic reaction by allowing cashew onto the plate so she could appear heroic. Maison Ajuralo's management issued a statement saying the full facts remained disputed and that Ibiere had violated emergency procedure. Damilare called the restaurant owner directly. Retract it. We cannot accept liability without investigation. You served a known allergen to a child. Your wife administered medication outside authorized protocol. My niece Alo's physician has already documented that the medication was appropriate. Then let the lawyers handle it. Damilare ended the call. Ibiere stood in the doorway. You cannot threaten everybody into truth. I can make lying expensive, that is still not truth. Before the legal letters were sent, a young kitchen assistant named Chisum contacted Boma. She had saved photographs from the night of the incident because the chef had instructed staff to discard the printed allergy docket. The images showed Inialza's order marked in red and the cashew garnish added later under a special menu change. Chisum also had a voice note from Mr. Nwachukwu telling employees to say Ibiere had not checked the reservation notes. Why did you keep this? Boma asked. Chisum looked down. Art because they blamed her for doing what all of us should have done. Why come forward now? Because they are using our silence to say poor workers have no truth unless rich people confirm it. The evidence did not erase every insult, but it broke the lie. Maison Azur withdrew its statement and announced an independent safety review. Mr. Nwachukwu was suspended. The restaurant paid Ibiere her withheld wages and offered a confidential settlement. She accepted payment for wages and reputational harm after Boma reviewed the terms. She refused a clause requiring her to praise the restaurant publicly. Money is not the problem, she told a reporter outside the mediation center. The problem is pretending money can purchase a false version of what happened. That clip spread farther than the insults. At Apex, the audit deepened. The independent team identified delivery records with identical handwriting across different locations, timestamps that could not match travel distances, and temperature curves that appeared too smooth to be genuine. A driver named Kabiru admitted that subcontractors were sometimes ordered to switch off refrigeration while waiting at ports or checkpoints. Who gave the order? The auditor asked. Kabiru rubbed his palms together. Supervisors. Which supervisors? He looked toward the closed door. If I speak, will I lose my job? Damilare, watching from the other side of the glass, felt shame. For years, the company Alo's safety posters had said, "Speak up," but the worker had no reason to trust the words. The new independent reporting mechanisms allowed Kabiru to submit records without going through Akinlolu Alo's chain of command. His documents connected several suspect routes to Blue Meridian Transport, a subcontractor registered to the brother-in-law of one of Akinlolu Alo's close associates. Ibiere did not become an investigator. She did not hack accounts or chase criminals. Her contribution remained specific and believable. She met with the audit team as a witness familiar with restaurant receiving practices. She explained how staff sometimes signed before checking because drivers pressured them, how thawed products could be refrozen and appear normal, and why condensation patterns mattered. She pointed to repeated client complaints from kitchens that had no connection to one another. Akinlolu walked into the meeting without knocking. What is she doing here? The lead auditor answered, providing operational context. She is not an employee. Ibiere closed the file before her. Neither are the children who could eat unsafe food. Akinlolu looked at Damilare. You are allowing your wife access to confidential reports. She is under a witness confidentiality agreement reviewed by counsel. This is madness. No, Ibiere said. Madness is recording -18 degrees while the thermometer is still inside its case. Akinlolu turned to her. You think carrying trays makes you an expert? She placed 3 delivery sheets on the table. Then why did the woman carrying trays notice what the man running operations could not? The room became silent. Akinlolu Olo's face darkened. "Be careful." Damilare stood. "Is that a threat?" "It is advice. Give it outside." Akinlolu looked from one to the other and left. The exchange gave Ibiere no joy. She had seen something in his eyes that reminded her of men who believed embarrassment must be repaid. 3 days before the guardianship mediation, Munirat visited Akinlolu at his home. They sat on a terrace while rain gathered beyond the compound wall. "You told me she was temporary," Munirat said. "She is. Damilare no longer behaves as if she is." Akinlolu poured 2 drinks. "Emotion is temporary too. You are losing control of operations. I am protecting the company from an audit driven by domestic influence." Munirat accepted the glass but did not drink. "And what exactly do you want from me?" "Public pressure. Enough to make the board question his judgment before the audit report is final." "You have evidence." Akinlolu opened a leather folder. Inside were copies of escrow instructions, the marriage agreement Alo's compensation page, and the schedule of 6-month public obligations. Munirat read slowly. Her mouth opened. "He paid her." "Yes, 5 million, yes." She looked almost wounded before satisfaction took over. "Does he love her?" "That is irrelevant. It is relevant to me." Akinlolu leaned back. "Then use whatever emotion helps you perform." Munirat closed the folder. "There is a gala next month. My firm is producing it." "Perfect. The agreement contains private legal material. You are suddenly concerned about privacy. I am concerned about exposure. Frame it as whistleblowing. A public company leader constructed a false marriage while facing a family proceeding. Questions of judgment, governance, transparency." Munirat looked at the payment figure again. "And her. People will decide what she is." Munirat Olo's smile returned. They did not know that the guardianship mediation would change the battlefield before the gala arrived. The mediation took place in a quiet conference room. Without cameras, Elder Edom and Uduak sat on one side with their counsel. Damilare sat opposite with Canyon Sola. Ibiere attended because she had become part of Ini Ilo's household and because the child Ilo's evaluator had interviewed her. Ini waited in another room with Dr. Mfon. The mediator, Mrs. Ilori, began by reminding them that the child was not an asset to be divided. Elder Edom Alo's lawyer listed Damilare Olo's travel schedule, missed therapy appointments, reliance on staff, and the recent restaurant emergency. Canyon Sola responded with evidence of changes. School attendance, therapy participation, household allergy controls, revised work schedule, and Damilare Olo's proposal for structured grandparent access. Then Ibiere was asked when her relationship with Damilare began. Damilare Olo's body became rigid. Canyon Sola had prepared a truthful but narrow answer. They met during Ini Alo's medical emergency and married after developing a shared concern for her stability. It was technically accurate. It was also incomplete. The mediator asked, "Was any financial arrangement connected to your decision to enter the marriage?" The room stopped breathing. Damilare looked at Ibiere. He did not tell her what to say. That mattered. "Yes," she answered. Uduak covered her mouth. Elder Edom Alo's eyes closed briefly. The mediator leaned forward. "Please explain." Ibiere placed both hands on the table. "Damilare offered me 5 million naira to undertake 6 months of household and public marital obligations. I had independent legal counsel. There was no sexual obligation. Part of the payment was placed in escrow. The agreement does not require me to lie in this process." Elder Edom turned on Damilare. "You purchased a wife to influence where my granddaughter lives." "I made a desperate and misguided decision," Damilare said. "Misguided," the old man thundered. You made the child believe this woman came to stay. I told Ini from the beginning that the future was uncertain, Ibiere said. Uduak Alo's voice shook. Do you care for her? Yes. Are you being paid to say that? No payment can require feeling. How can we know? You cannot know from words. You can only examine conduct. The mediator raised one hand. Let us return to the child, Alo's welfare. Elder Edom struck his cane against the floor. This proves our case. No, Ibiere said. Everyone turned. She continued. It proves the marriage began for the wrong reason. It does not prove either household should own any. Own? Elder Edom repeated. Yes, because that is how everybody is behaving. Damilare wanted a wife to make himself look stable. You wanted evidence to remove Ini because you do not trust him. Granba cries when the child leaves Uyo. Damilare makes a cold face when you call. Ini believes loving one side betrays the other. Uduak began to cry quietly. Damilare looked down. Ibiere Alo's voice softened. She does not need one group to defeat the other. She needs adults who can share responsibility without making her carry their grief. The mediator asked, what arrangement do you believe serves her best? Ibiere had prepared nothing. She spoke from what she had observed. Let her remain in the same school during term. Damilare should be primary day to day guardian only if he continues therapy attendance, school involvement, and a fixed schedule. Her grandparents should have regular weekends, part of holidays, and unrestricted calls at agreed times. Medical information must be shared immediately. Nobody should use her photographs publicly without careful approval, and Ini should be heard in a way suitable for her age. Elder Edom stared at her. You are proposing that she remain with him. I am proposing that she remain stable. Removing her suddenly because adults are angry would be another loss. And what position do you have? None that belongs above her welfare. Damilare looked at Ibiere then, and something inside him broke open. She could have protected the marriage Elo's image. She could have lied and strengthened her own place in the house. Instead, she had risked the contract, the payment, and public reputation to tell the truth. He loved her, not because she cared for Ini, not because she challenged him, not because she had improved his home. He loved her because when truth became expensive, she still paid its price. The mediation ended with an interim shared care framework pending final evaluation. Ini would remain in Lagos during school weeks, spend scheduled weekends and holidays with the Akanems, and continue therapy. Damilare Alo's compliance would be reviewed. Outside the room, Elder Edom approached Ibiere. I judged you before hearing you, he said. You had reason to question me. I had reason to question the arrangement, not your humanity. It was as close to an apology as his pride could manage. Uduak hugged her. Damilare waited until they left. You may have damaged our position, he said. Ibiere Alo's face tightened. Then he added, and protected Ini. I am trying to say thank you without first saying the wrong thing. She exhaled. You nearly failed. I know. He wanted to tell her he loved her. He did not. The agreement still stood. 4 weeks remained. A confession from him could become another weight she was forced to carry. Instead, he said, when the 6 months end, I will not ask you for any answer immediately. Answer to what? He looked at her for a moment. You will know then. She knew already. That was the problem. The gala took place 23 days later at the Eco Convention Center. Apex Coldlink was launching a fund for school nutrition safety. The event had been planned months earlier, but after the shipment investigation, its theme had gained uncomfortable relevance. Munirat Alo's firm controlled production. Damilare had considered cancelling. The board insisted the program continue, partly to reassure partners. Ibiere agreed to speak only if she could address practical food safety training rather than tell a sentimental story about marriage. She spent 3 days preparing. Her presentation explained simple receiving checks for schools and small kitchens, verify temperatures before signing, separate allergens, document batch numbers, protect workers who report problems, and never let status silence the person closest to the risk. The ballroom was full of executives, politicians, restaurateurs, journalists, and donors. Akinlolu sat at the board Alo's table, outwardly calm. The audit report was not yet final. He still had allies who believed Damilare had overreacted. Munirat wore silver. Before Ibiere went on stage, Damilare found her behind the curtain. "You do not have to do this." I prepared. "There are many reporters. There are always many reporters when rich people gather to congratulate one another." He smiled faintly. "Your first slide is strong. You read it?" I read all of it. "Without changing anything?" I corrected 1 comma. She stared. He lifted his hands. Then I changed it back. The stage manager called her name. Ibiere stepped into the light. Applause rose, uncertain but respectable. She began with the restaurant emergency, not naming Maison Azure. She spoke about how systems failed when workers feared powerful customers more than unsafe food. She explained that dignity and safety were linked because an employee who could be humiliated for speaking up would eventually remain silent. Then the screen behind her flickered. Her slide disappeared. A scanned document replaced it. Private marital agreement. Compensation. 5,000. Duration of public marital obligations. 6 moves. For 1 second, nobody understood. Then the room erupted. Phones rose. Somebody laughed. Another person shouted, "Jesus!" The document scrolled, showing the escrow payment and commencement date. Ibiere Alo's mouth went dry. Backstage technicians shouted at one another. The feed did not change. Munirat walked onto the stage holding a microphone. She wore the expression of a woman arriving to protect the public from deception. "I am sorry," she said to the audience, "but a program about integrity cannot be built on a purchased marriage." Damilare pushed away from his table. Munirat turned to him. "So this is your respectable wife, Damilare, a waitress you rented for 6 months." The laughter came again, uglier now. One man near the front said, 5 million only." Ibiere heard it. Her fingers tightened around the microphone. Damilare reached the stage steps. "Turn that screen off." Technicians finally cut the feed, but the image remained on hundreds of phones. Ibiere lifted one hand. "No," she said. "Put it back." The room quietened slightly. "Itha." Damilare looked at her. "Let it remain." The document returned. She faced him. "Before you defend me, answer them. Did you pay me to become your wife, or did you not?" Damilare stood beneath the lights, surrounded by board members, reporters, clients and people who had spent years praising his judgment. He could call the document stolen. He could say Ibiere had proposed the arrangement. He could hide behind legal language. He could allow the room to blame the poorer person because that was what rooms like this did naturally. He climbed onto the stage. "Yes," he said. The word traveled through the hall. "Yes, I offered her 5 million naira." Munirat smiled in triumph. Damilare continued. "She did not approach me. She did not seduce me. She did not create my guardianship problem. I went to her when she was unemployed and facing eviction. I used my financial power to propose an arrangement that allowed me to purchase the appearance of a stable home instead of doing the work required to build one." The smile left Munirat Alo's face. Damilare looked toward the board table. Ibiere insisted on independent legal counsel. She refused every clause that would compromise consent, truth, or safety. She required me to attend therapy with my niece. She identified a dangerous food shipment that my own management system failed to stop. She gave truthful evidence in a private family proceeding even when silence would have protected her. Akinlolu stood. This is a corporate event, not a confession. Damilare turned toward him. Sit down. Akinlolu remained standing. Damilare Olowoniyi's voice sharpened. The external audit has also identified serious irregularities in subcontracted cold chain records under operations. Until the board completes its review, I am requesting that both you and I step aside from executive authority. The ballroom changed again. Now the cameras turned toward Akinlolu, his face drained. Munirat stepped closer to Damilare. You are trying to distract from fraud in your marriage. No. I am connecting the same failure. Powerful people believing presentation matters more than truth. He faced the audience. The shame of this agreement belongs first to the man who believed he could purchase the appearance of family. It does not belong to the woman who negotiated for survival. For the first time, nobody laughed. Ibiere raised her microphone. Her hands were still trembling. Her voice was not. You laughed because a waitress accepted money, she said. Yet many people in this room accept salaries to protect powerful men every day. A murmur moved through the hall. You heard 5 million naira and decided it explained my whole character. You did not ask what work I performed, what rights I protected, or what pressure existed when the offer was made. Poverty does not remove consent, but poverty can make consent more complicated. That is why people with power must carry more responsibility, not less. She looked at Munirat. You called me rented. I was paid for defined labor under legal advice. I was not paid to surrender my body, my judgment, or my voice. Then she looked across the ballroom. Work does not remove dignity. Wearing an apron does not reduce intelligence. A bank balance does not measure morality, and wealth does not turn exploitation into generosity. Somebody began clapping near the back. Another person joined. Then more. The applause grew, but Ibiere did not smile. This was not victory. Her private life had been torn open for entertainment. She placed the microphone on the lectern and walked off stage. Damilare followed her through the backstage corridor. Ibiere. She kept walking. Ibiere, please. She stopped beside an emergency exit. His breathing was uneven. I did not know they had the document. I know. I will find out who. This is not only about who leaked it. I defended you. Yes, the word struck him. She turned to face him. Tears stood in her eyes, but her posture remained straight. You finally told the truth in public. That matters. But it does not erase the fact that you created the truth they used to humiliate me. I know. Do you? I am trying to. People will replay that screen for years. They will forget every word I said and remember the price. I will correct every false claim. You cannot control memory with a press statement. He stepped closer, then stopped himself. I love you. The confession escaped before he could protect her from it. Ibiere closed her eyes. There it was. The thing she had felt growing between them, now arriving at the worst possible moment. When she opened her eyes, she said, You finally told the truth. That does not mean I am ready to give you my heart. He looked as if she had struck him. She continued, softer now. And because I care for you, I need to leave before affection becomes another reason I ignore what this arrangement has done to me. Our 6 months are not over. 23 days remain. I will complete agreed public obligations only where necessary. I will stay elsewhere. Boma will handle the notice. What about Inni? She gave him a warning look. He nodded immediately. You are right. I will not use her. Ibiere opened the exit door. Outside, camera flashes exploded behind the security barrier. She walked into them alone. The morning after the gala, Lagos woke with an opinion. Clips from the stage had spread across every platform. Some accounts posted only the contract and Munirat Alow's insult. Others posted Damilare Olow's confession. A smaller number shared Ibiere Alow's full speech. The most repeated line was not the one about love. It was this: work does not remove dignity. Restaurant workers used it beneath photographs of themselves in uniforms. Nurses used it. Drivers used it. Cleaners used it. Domestic workers wrote about being called just staff by people who depended on them every day. The mockery did not disappear, but it no longer owned the whole story. Ibiere moved into Boma Ilo's guest room and turned off her phone for 12 hours. When she turned it on again, there were 9 missed calls from Damilare, 4 from Ini, 2 from Elder Edem, 1 from Mrs. Adunola, and more messages than she could count. She called Ini first. "Are you angry with me?" the child asked. "No. Are you coming back?" "Not to live there now." Ini was quiet. "But I will see you on Saturday if your uncle and grandparents agree." "Because of the contract?" "No. Because I want to." The child breathed out slowly. "Okay." Ibiere spoke with Damilare next. He sounded exhausted. "The board has called an emergency meeting," he said. "I have requested temporary leave. You did not need to do that for me. I did it because the governance failure happened under my authority." That answer mattered more than an apology. He continued. "Akinlolu has been suspended pending review. Access logs show someone in the family office opened the agreement file 3 weeks ago. We are tracing copies." "Do not tell the public I had no responsibility at all," Ibiere said. He was silent. "What do you mean?" "I chose to sign. The pressure mattered. Your power mattered, but I was not unconscious. Do not defend me by removing my agency." "I understand. Say what you did. Say what I chose. Say why the structure was unequal. All 3 can be true. I will. And do not use your love for me as a defense." His voice lowered. "I will not." They ended the call without discussing the future. The investigation into the leak moved faster than the audit, because digital access left clearer footprints. A staff member in the family office admitted that Akinlolu had requested the escrow documents under the pretext of reviewing related party risk. Building security records showed Munirat visiting his home. On the same evening, the files were copied. Neither fact alone proved the public disclosure. Together with messages obtained through legal process, they showed coordination. Munirat Olow's firm lost the Apex account immediately. 2 other clients suspended their contracts after learning that her production team had used a private marital agreement during a charity event without authorization. She issued a statement claiming she acted in the public interest. The statement failed to explain why she had rehearsed the reveal with Akinlolu, or why her team had been instructed to keep Ibiere Olow's presentation live long enough for the contract image to appear behind her. There was no dramatic arrest at the airport. No officer entered the ballroom with handcuffs. Lawyers sent notices. Regulators asked questions. Contracts were reviewed. Reputation collapsed in the slow administrative manner that powerful people feared more than shouting. Akinlolu denied financial wrongdoing. The final audit took another 6 weeks. It found that Blue Meridian Transport and 2 related subcontractors had overbilled Apex for fuel, vehicle hours, and refrigerated capacity. Temperature data had been edited on multiple routes. Several managers had signed false compliance reports. Payments flowed through companies connected to Akinlolu Olow's associates. The report did not claim every delivery was unsafe. It did not need to. The system designed to prove safety had been corrupted. Apex Olow's board removed Akinlolu as chief operating officer and referred the evidence to external counsel and relevant authorities. Recovery proceedings began. The company notified affected clients, expanded product testing, and created a compensation process where losses could be established. Damilare remained on temporary leave during the first stage of remediation. He did not fight the board. Instead, he submitted a governance plan that separated family influence from operations, placed food safety under an independent committee, protected whistleblowers, and required direct reporting of cold chain breaches to the board Aloe's risk unit. Kabiru and other drivers who had testified were protected from retaliation. Supervisors could no longer close safety complaints without written review from an independent quality officer. The company also stopped using smiling photographs of children in its marketing without clear consent. Some shareholders called the reforms expensive. Damilare replied, "Unsafe shortcuts are debts. They only appear cheap before the bill arrives." His return to executive leadership was approved months later under board oversight. It was not framed as redemption. Trust came with conditions. At home, he faced a different review every day. Ini Aloe's schedule with her grandparents began. The first weekend, Damilare packed too many clothes and called Uduak 6 times before the child reached Uyo. On the 7th call, Elder Edem answered. "Your niece is eating plantain," he said. "If she coughs, we will inform you. If she laughs, we may not send a report." Damilare almost argued. Then he laughed instead. The shared care arrangement became permanent after evaluators confirmed that Ini was improving. She remained in her Lagos school, spent scheduled weekends and holidays with the Ekanems, and continued therapy. Damilare attended meetings. The grandparents received medical updates. Nobody asked Ini to choose a side. When she drew her household again, Damilare was no longer in the corner beside a phone. He stood near the center. Ibiere appeared on another page, beside a small building with a red roof. "What is that?" Dr. Memphon asked. "Her kitchen," Ini said. Day 180 arrived without ceremony. Ibiere returned to the Ikoyi house at 10 in the morning with Boma. Damilare and Canyon Sola waited in the study. The final 3 million naira had already been transferred. The escrow statement, completion certificate, and termination of public obligations lay on the table. Boma reviewed every page. "You remain legally married," she reminded them. "The private performance period has ended. Any future decision concerning separation or continuation must follow proper legal advice and procedure." "I understand," Ibiere said. Damilare signed first. Ibiere signed beneath him. The pen made a soft scratching sound. 6 months ended in less than 5 seconds. Damilare slid a folder across the table. "What is this?" she asked. "An apartment lease in your name for 2 years, a vehicle, and an offer of seed capital for your business. No conditions." Ibiere did not open the folder. "No." His face tightened, though he had expected it. "You need somewhere to live. I have arranged a flat in Surulere. It is not secure enough. It is secure enough for the people already living there. The car would make movement easier. I will buy one when my business can support it." He touched the folder. "This is not control. It may not be intended as control. But I need a life whose foundation was not handed to me by a man hoping I will stay." He withdrew his hand. "All right." Canyon Sola watched him carefully. Ibiere picked up the payment statement. "You are keeping the money?" Damilare asked. She looked at him. "Yes." He nodded. "Good." That surprised her. "Some people online say I should return it to prove I did not marry for money." Those people did not complete the obligations. No. She allowed herself a small smile. They did not. She placed the statement inside her bag. Returning, it would accept their lie that being paid made me dirty. I worked. I moved homes. I attended events. I supported a household. I carried risk. I completed the agreement. I earned the money. Yes, Damilare said. No argument. No wounded pride. She looked around the study. I have packed the rest of my things. I know. Inni is at school? Yes. She asked me not to bring her because she would cry. I may cry too. Damilare looked down. Boma and Kanyansala quietly left the room. For a while, husband and wife stood apart in the office where their arrangement had begun. I meant what I said at the gala. Damilare told her. I love you, I know. I am not asking you to stay today. Good. I am not asking you to answer today. Better. His mouth moved in the shadow of a smile. I am learning. Slowly. Painfully. That is often how learning works. He took one step closer, leaving enough distance for refusal. I am sorry I made your survival available for public judgment. You did not leak the document. I created it. I proposed it when you had fewer choices than I did. Good legal protections did not remove that imbalance. Ibiere Alow's eyes filled. This was the apology she had needed. Not dramatic. Not designed to win her back. Specific enough to prove he finally understood the injury. She nodded. Thank you. May I hug you? She considered. Yes. He held her carefully. No kiss, no promise. When she left the house, he did not follow. Ibiere used the money with discipline. She paid Sotonye Alow's outstanding fees directly to the Polytechnic and placed the next term Alow's amount in a separate education account. She paid a deposit on a modest 2-bedroom flat. She enrolled in an accredited food safety program and leased a small commercial kitchen in Yaba that had once belonged to a failed bakery. The walls were stained. 2 burners did not work. The cold room needed repair. The landlord laughed when she asked for a written inventory. Madam, it is only a kitchen. That is why I need the inventory. She called the business the Safe Plate Kitchen Initiative. It began with catering orders, but its real purpose went beyond selling food. Ibiere designed short training sessions for waiters, cooks, school meal workers, and small restaurant owners. The modules covered allergen controls, receiving temperatures, record-keeping, respectful reporting, and basic costing. Mrs. Adefisayo helped refine the curriculum. Chizom from Maison Azure became one of the first trainees and later joined as a kitchen supervisor. Mama Ejiro offered the community kitchen for weekend classes until Ibiere Alow's own space was ready. Damilare did not fund the business. He made one request through the company Alow's Community Affairs Department. Could Apex sponsor 20 independent food service workers to attend training, with payment made at the standard published rate and no branding rights over Ibiere Alow's organization? Boma reviewed the proposal. Ibiere accepted. That was the first money between them that did not confuse affection with obligation. For 3 months, Damilare did not ask for romance. He visited Inni Alow's sessions, worked through the company reforms, and continued counseling of his own. He came to the kitchen only when invited. When he attended an opening event, he stood in the second row rather than beside Ibiere for photographs. He brought no luxury gifts. Once he arrived with a toolbox because a shelf had collapsed. Who told you? She asked. Inni, you are a billionaire carrying a toolbox. I own one. Do you know how to use it? Do not disrespect my growth. The shelf leaned after he repaired it. Ibiere called a carpenter the next morning. Their relationship rebuilt itself through ordinary things. A cup of tea after class. A disagreement about whether Inni should have a phone. A visit to Uyo, where Damilare allowed Elder Edom to teach the child family history without checking the time. An evening when Ibiere spoke about the fear that people would always see her as the purchased wife, and Damilare listened without telling her to ignore them. A morning when Damilare admitted that stepping aside from Apex had made him feel useless. Because he had built his identity around being needed. You were needed at home, Ibiere said. I did not know how to count that. You count everything. I am learning some things have value without a dashboard. She smiled. That sounded like therapy. It was expensive. I should use it. 6 months after the gala, Damilare came to the Safe Plate kitchen after the final training session of the day. The students had left. Metal bowls dried on racks. The repaired cold room hummed steadily. He carried the old marital agreement in a plain brown envelope. Ibiere wiped her hands on a cloth. What is that? Our first mistake. Only first. One of the better documented ones. He placed the envelope on the counter. On the final page, beneath both signatures, he had written, "Obligations completed, payment settled. No debt remains." Ibiere read it twice. There was no debt after the final transfer. I know. I needed to say it without legal language. She looked at him. Damilare Olowoniyi's voice was steady, but his hands were not. The first time I asked you to become my wife, I was afraid of losing something. I wanted to control the outcome. I offered money because money was the language I trusted. He paused. This time, I am not asking you to rescue my home, protect my reputation, raise my niece, or prove anything to anybody. I am asking whether you want to build a real marriage with me, knowing that you can refuse and lose nothing. He did not kneel. He did not produce a ring large enough to become a news story. Ibiere folded the paper. What happens when I oppose you in front of your board? I listen. Then, I may oppose you back. What happens when my business takes priority over one of your events? We compare what matters, not whose name is bigger. What happens when you become jealous? I recognize it as my feeling, not your restriction. What happens when Ini is angry with me? We do not force her to perform gratitude. What happens when people call me the 5 million naira wife? I do not answer for you unless you ask. I stand beside you when you answer for yourself. She watched him for a long moment. And counseling. I continue mine, we begin ours. Financial independence. Protected. My name and business. Yours. No hidden public relations plan. Munirat has cured me of surprise presentations. Ibiere almost laughed. Then her face became serious. I will not renew a contract. Damilare Olowoniyi's breath caught. She stepped closer. I will choose my marriage. The relief in his face was so open that she saw the man beneath the billionaire, the frightened brother, the imperfect guardian, the person learning that love could not be secured by advance payment. He did not touch her until she lifted her hands to his face. Their first kiss was quiet. No cameras, no witnesses, no money changing hands. Because the legal marriage had never automatically ended, they did not stage another wedding. Instead, with guidance from their lawyers and counselor, they created a new marital and financial framework based on their actual intentions. Ibiere maintained separate ownership of her business. They agreed on household contributions, privacy, caregiving responsibilities, and conflict counseling. Then they held a small family commitment ceremony in the courtyard of Elder Edom Olow's home in Uyo. Mrs. Adonola attended in bright blue lace. Boma and Canyon Sola sat together, whispering observations about everybody Olow's legal risk. Chisholm supervised the food with allergen labels on every tray. Sotonye gave a speech that embarrassed Ibiere and made Damilare laugh. Ini stood between them, holding no ring and no script. She looked at Ibiere. Does this one have an expiry date? Ibiere knelt until they were eye to eye. No expiry date. Ini smiled. Then Ibiere added, but every day still requires work. Elder Edom nodded from his chair. That is the most honest marriage vow I have heard. 1 year later, the dining room in the Ikoyi house no longer felt like a boardroom. The long table remained. But most meals took place at one end, close enough for people to pass bowls without standing. Damilare cooked breakfast on Saturdays, though his pancakes remained irregular. Ini checked every label with the seriousness of a safety inspector. Ibiere answered training messages from restaurant owners across Lagos. Staff members ate at reasonable times, received formal contracts, and attended safety training during paid hours. Nobody was praised as part of the family in place of proper wages. Apex Coldlink published its first independent food safety report. It included breaches, corrective actions, and whistleblower statistics. The report was not flattering. That was why it was useful. Akinlolu Alo's legal and financial proceedings continued through the proper channels. Some funds were recovered. Some facts remained contested. The company did not pretend one dishonest executive explained every weakness. Systems had allowed the misconduct. Systems had to change. Munirat rebuilt part of her career elsewhere, but the gala followed her name. Public humiliation had been her weapon. Professional distrust became its consequence. The Safe Plate Kitchen initiative trained hundreds of frontline food workers in its first year. Ibiere refused offers to turn it into a vanity foundation. It charged businesses that could pay and subsidized workers who could not. Its most popular lesson began with a simple question: who is allowed to stop the food from being served? The correct answer was, anyone who sees a credible safety risk. Not only the owner, not only the manager, not only the person wearing the most expensive clothes. One evening, Ini placed a new drawing on the refrigerator. It showed Damilare at the stove, Ibiere holding a clipboard, Ini between them, and the Akanims waving from a car. Mrs. Adonola stood in the doorway. Even the driver appeared near the gate. There was no broken line. Damilare studied it. "Why is my head so big?" "Because you talk too much now," Ini said. Ibiere laughed. The sound filled the kitchen. Looking back, the easiest person to condemn would have been the poor woman who accepted 5 million naira. Society often judges the person who takes money more harshly than the powerful person who designs the unequal choice. But money was never the full measure of what happened in that house. Ibiere Alo's dignity did not begin when a billionaire married her, and it did not disappear when she accepted payment. Damilare Alo's wealth did not make him evil, but it allowed him to avoid emotional responsibility until somebody refused to confuse provision with presence. Ini did not need a perfect-looking family. She needed adults honest enough to stop using her pain as a competition. There is also a lesson in the workers people overlook. A waitress noticed the allergy. A driver exposed the temperature records. A kitchen assistant preserved the evidence. None of them held the highest title. They simply stood closest to the truth. A contract can purchase time, labor, and defined obligations. It cannot ethically purchase affection, silence, consent, or ownership of another person, Alo's future. Love became possible only after the payment was settled, the pressure was removed, and Ibiere could say yes without fear of what saying no would cost. Money bought 6 months of her time. It never bought her choice. And their real marriage began only when that choice was returned to her.